right? That's what we want to know. Are your cryptocurrencies safe? Well, that really depends on what you mean by safe, right? Generally speaking, most people, when they think about is their crypto safe, are their crypto safe, is are they, first of all, held, stored, and secured in such a way that keeps them in their control and, away from bad actors, hackers, thieves, other nefarious ne'er-do-wells. That's what safe means to most people, right? Well, then there's also people that want to know, is it safe in terms of as an investment, an asset class, a thing to hold on to, or is it likely to crash, or a rug? For those of you who don't know, a rug is basically a bad investment, right? That is ripped out from beneath your feet, so to speak, so that you fall down, and they take the assets away. And usually the people that do that are often the people that have the biggest interest in the coin and have the most control of it out of all the regular holders of it, which happens a lot, especially in new projects where little or nothing is known about the team behind it, and usually they have a lot of red flags. Now you could say, well, hang on, I thought nobody knows anything about the real identity of the guy who made Bitcoin, and that is true. Most people do not have any clue about the identity, about the real identity of the guy or girl or group of people or AI bot from the future that made Bitcoin, right? It's true. Satoshi Nakamoto is a pseudonym as far as we know, and nothing is known about that person or their identity other than that pseudonym and the many emails and messages that Satoshi left using various methods, on the Cypherpunks group, emails sent back and forth, all kinds of stuff like that. But generally speaking, yeah, nobody knows who that is, and yet Bitcoin is considered safe. Why? Well, because at a certain time, Satoshi made it clear that he or she or whatever was leaving the project, to its own devices and to the people who were by then already doing most of the edits and updates and maintenance, and he felt comfortable that those were being done well and that the project was in good hands, and so it was. So he left, right? And that's why that asset is considered safe, because it's been more than a dozen years or so now since anyone has heard from Satoshi, and it sure doesn't look like Satoshi's, active, right? He hasn't said a peep since then. Maybe he's around or she's around, whatever. Maybe they're around. By the way, it's almost impossible that it would be a group of people, but it's not entirely impossible. But the reason that it's so highly improbable is that it's highly improbable that a group of people, unless something terrible happened to every single one of them, would be able to maintain such a secret for so long and not act on it. When you have multiple people, you have many interests, and to sit on such a huge stack, such a vast fortune, and not do anything with it would be historically extremely aberrant, because of the sheer financial value of the holdings of all those wallets, right? But, who knows? Maybe it was. Anyway, don't get too lost on the identity of Satoshi. But the point is, that is one reason that Bitcoin is considered safe, is because the founder did not rug it and has not rugged it. And okay, maybe he's waiting till it reaches 100 million a coin, and then he'll rug it and screw the whole economy. Yeah, maybe, but highly unlikely, right? Um, However, other projects where you don't know anything about the founders usually have more red flags. Like they'll put up a founders page on their site, and they'll use fake photos. Right? That's one. That's a red flag. Another one is they will uh, do very suspicious things in their communities, quote unquote. You know, they'll do things. First of all, there's a lot of things people do by default now that wasn't, or that weren't done, or wasn't done, that weren't done when Bitcoin started, because when Bitcoin started, this was all new, and so these things didn't really exist yet for the average user who was getting into Bitcoin, right? Like I remember being on forums early on, or there wasn't an active Discord community, or people weren't, busy trying to have spaces on Twitter, for example, right? We were talking about Bitcoin mostly amongst ourselves in various website forums or email lists or other places where we would discuss back in 2008, 9, 10, right? In 2008, it was pretty much the cypherpunks list, right? Because before that, hardly anybody else in the world knew about it, right? Because it only came out, the white paper, at the end of October 2008. Anyway, so the point is, it was a very different time, and there were a lot less things, obviously, that could happen to make a coin seem more suspect, frankly, than it already was, being created by an anonymous person or a pseudonymous person, right, or entity. Now, cryptos are much more susceptible to being rugged or rugs because there's such a greater interest on the part of the creators of the coins, right, to do a money grab with a thing that they know is a fairly reliable money grab, right, or cash grab, or whatever you want to call it. And the reason that is because of the success of Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin hasn't been rugged, people increasingly trust crypto more. Well, that's where mistakes happen when you remove or drop your skepticism, right? Not paranoia, but healthy skepticism to say, okay, is this thing even real? Because there's a very high probability, anywhere from 5 to 10% or whatever it is, that's a high probability that it could be a rug, and that your funds are not seifu, as Changpeng Zhao was famous for saying. So, that's why people are wary sometimes, if they have a brain between their ears, they should be, of brand new crypto projects, because they want to first vet that it's real, which does two things. One is, if you want to vet the founding team, well, the problem is, what if it's not a founding team? What if it's just an individual? I've certainly made a whole bunch of them myself. Well, it's easy to know who I am because I don't hide behind the invisible wall or whatever. It could just as easily be that I've made some pseudonymously and you'll never know, right? And but the problem of having a known team at the helm of any project is the same problem that faces every single project that exists, pretty much except for Bitcoin, that you know of, right? And that problem is that because Bitcoin doesn't have somebody, quote unquote, at the helm, because it's a grassroots open source organization that nobody owns, that is released into the public, that is maintained by the public, by volunteers, were in the Bitcoin core developers team. Well, because of that, it has great value and it has earned trust. However, it couldn't earn that trust likely today without having a known team. But the problem with having a known team is the known team won't earn that trust because it will be seen as a thing that is meant to further their interests first. And because people don't believe that anyone can be altruistic, right, in their giving, especially after the whole SBF thing, right, given that he was faking the whole altruism thing, it's understandable why people don't trust teams of people who are running a program, a protocol, whatever, a project, and don't just believe when they say, they're not doing it for any personal benefit. So those are some of the reasons that you need to be skeptical and wary on the one hand. On the other hand, those are some of the reasons that certain projects are limited in their potential growth far more than, say, Bitcoin, because precisely of that reason. It's a double-edged sword, and that, in a way, that's a good thing. But it's also complicated, and can it be an issue that is annealed over time in certain ways? I think so, yes. I think it's still possible to make pseudonymous projects like Bitcoin that nobody knows who the founder is, and the founder essentially builds it and, gives it away and then disappears, right? I think that's very possible, right? It's just unlikely, but it is very possible. It's not entirely unlikely, but it's very possible. And then again, back to the original one of securing your assets to keep them actually safe. Right? Safe. Simplest way, really, is to get a good hardware wallet. I'm not going to promote any particular one, but I'm sure you've heard of a bunch of different ones. Right? There's Coldlar, Trezor, Ledger, all these kind of things. Get a good one. There's plenty of wallets to choose from. YubiKey, all these different keys you can get. There's no shortage. Get something that's good and solid and secure that you can keep offline, that can store your coins, and depending on how much you have, you might want to have more than one. And it's always good to have a backup anyway. And definitely if you have, thousands of dollars worth of crypto, it makes sense to have at least one or two wallets, because, well, why not? When these things cost about anywhere from $50 to $200 a piece, roughly, depending on what you buy and who you buy from. Anyway, I'll get into a longer discussion about that if you want. I already made a website about that a long time ago. And if you guys want to see the articles, I will repost them somewhere, because I took that website down some years ago. But yeah. Alright, that's it for now. Happy cryptoing through the cryptos.